Hey guys, Ike here from Mike'sOutdoors.com. I'm here today to show you a couple DIY deer feeders that I made. Okay, so I made a couple different feeders. I'm going to show you both of these. Either one of these can be made out of a 55-gallon barrel, plastic barrel. And all you'll need to do this is basically a screwdriver, some parts you'll pick up at Lowe's or a home improvement store, and I used a grinder to cut this out with the cutout blade on there. So the first one that I made is a very simple one that I just took the design off of another feeder that I have that's metal. What I did was I had this small plastic barrel, and I like it because it's small and lightweight and it's got a handle on top of it. But like I said, you can make this out of a 55-gallon barrel that'll hold a lot more feed than what this is, and you can use it you can make it the exact same way that I made it. So what I did is I took my angle grinder and I just cut the top off of it right here, and all I did was installed pipe insulation around the top, and I got the thickest, biggest pipe insulation that I could get. And then I installed a gate latch on the side here, and I installed this gate latch intentionally to where it would be really tight because I want this to pull down into that foam and seal this thing up. So once I close this thing up, all I got to do is latch that, and then the top will not come open. The other thing that I did is I took my angle grinder and I cut a square right out of this thing, and then I went across right here and left about 4 inches in there, and only scored that with my angle grinder. I didn't cut it all the way through, I just scored the top of it. Pushed this flap back in and took my impact and just ran a couple screws in there to hold this back. Now the reason I did this is if I'd have opened this big section up right here, I wouldn't have been able to put a bunch of corn in there. It just comes spilling out. So with this design like this, it'll hold the corn back and allow it to flow down and still give you a nice trough down here on the bottom that the deer can eat out of. So super simple design, super simple to make. And if you make this out of a 55-gallon barrel, it'll hold 250, 300 pounds of feed, I'm not sure. But this small one right here for me, I'm hoping maybe I can get 75 pounds or 100 pounds of feed in it is about it. I just like it because it's compact and small and got a handle on the top of it. And it was a barrel that I already had around here. The other thing is I drilled about a 3/8 hole right here in the front, and I found a tent stake that I had laying around here, and I'll take that tent stake and I'll actually just drive it in the ground. That way the deer can't move this thing around, tip it over, knock it over, raccoons, things like that can't knock it over. So it'll be a nice easy feeder. It'll work really well, and it'll keep your feed, for the most part, it'll keep your feed dry. Any feed that's down here is going to get wet probably, but for the most part it's going to keep your feed dry and keep it where the deer have choice and have access to the feed whenever they want it. Okay, so this one's a little bit different. Like I said, you can build this out of a 55-gallon barrel, plastic barrel, and all I would do on the 55-gallon barrel is do the top the exact same way that I did it on this small one right here. Now, I added a little bit different type of system to the bottom of this one because I didn't want to cut a big flap in the side of this thing and stuff like that. This is a feeder. This is a feeder that had the thrower on here, and it took the battery and everything like that, and I got sick of messing around with the thrower and the batteries, and I went one time for like 3 months and thought I had the thing turned on, and I didn't get it programmed correctly when I left, and when I went back it hadn't thrown any feed. It was completely full. The deer hadn't been hitting it because there just wasn't nothing there. Another time one of the batteries I had was bad. I put it in there and it threw for like 2 or 3 days and then just stopped. So I got sick of messing with the throwers, and I got sick of messing with the batteries. So the other thing that I read was the CWD, this chronic wasting disease that they say is spreading from deer to deer, is spread from the ground. So the conservation department here in Missouri at least says it's best not to feed deer directly off the ground. So that's another reason why I decided to go ahead and make this into a gravity feeder. Now this one already had a hole on the bottom, but I'll show you what I did. You can basically take a hole saw or a jigsaw and cut yourself a hole down here on the bottom, and you'll see what I've got here on the bottom is this is a toilet flange. I had this pipe already laying around. This is 3-inch pipe. I took a 3-inch toilet flange, and they're about $7 at Lowe's, or $8 or something like that. And I basically just, the hole that was already in here, or the hole that you're going to cut with your jigsaw or your hole saw, I just screwed this over the top of it. Then I came down with a section of pipe this is about 8 or 9 inches long, and then I got a T, and then from the T I got another section of pipe that's 14, 16 inches long. And when I went to Lowe's, they didn't have any caps, so I ended up finding some caps for the one that I've got out. I got one out already, and I couldn't find any more caps, but I found these 90s just laying around the house that I had from something, so I went ahead and put 90s on the end, basically just to cap this off. But what's going to happen is I'm going to fill this thing up with corn. It's going to flow down, and it's going to flow down into this trough, and as the deer eat and the raccoons come and eat and blah blah blah, they're going to continually be filling these troughs with corn. So it's a good way to have the deer eating out of this as choice. Whenever they want it, they can get it. And the other thing is it keeps it off the ground, so there's no chance, I hope, of them getting CWD. The other thing is I took no more hanging this thing with a come along, no more hanging this thing up with the legs and having to take a ladder in every time. No more batteries, no more throwers, nothing to have to worry about programming or anything like that. Super simple. Walk in there, fill the thing up, and let it do its thing. Now the deer are probably going to eat out of it a little bit faster. That's a great thing about having a feeder that you can program, is you can program how much corn it throws and when it throws it. Gets the deer in there used to, you know, having corn at 8 o'clock in the morning, and it only allows so much to go out, so you're not wasting as much feed. But I've had nothing but trouble, and it's all human error, it's all my fault, but this is just so much simpler for me, and I don't have to go back to the woods, and I don't have to worry about the thing, you know, being charged and being programmed and all that stuff like that. So taking the human error out of it, which I do a lot, is the way that I want to go. So this is why I've swapped over to the gravity feeder. So these are two really simple ways of making gravity feeders. Like I said, you don't have to have a deer feeder, you don't have to have these legs. If you want to do this exact same design and don't want to use these legs, you can go get a couple of 1-bys, the garden stakes or something at Lowe's that are treated, and you can basically just screw them to the side and place where these legs are and get this thing up. Or you can take this thing in and you know, bolt it to a tree, use some lag bolts and bolt it to a tree and use it that way. Or you can put it up with a hoist if you want to, but I'm trying to avoid having to take a ladder in or anything like that. So I'm using really short, small legs and want this to basically just be at ground level where the deer can have access to it. But there are a lot of different ways of putting legs on here, so you do not have to have a feeder like this. You can do both of these designs with a plastic 55-gallon barrel that most places around here you can pick up the plastic ones for about 15 to 20 bucks. So and then you got another just a little bit into the end of the pipe that goes on the bottom. If you do the design like this white one here, you got literally nothing into it. You got a latch and you got the pipe insulation, and that's about it. This is the cheapest, easiest way to go. This one is super easy and super cheap to produce. So this is the one, if I had a bunch of 55-gallon barrels, this is what I would be doing. This one's going to be a little bit more expensive. So that's how I made my DIY gravity feeders. Hope you guys found this video informational, and hope you go out and put some gravity feeders up for yourself. So I appreciate you guys watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Please be sure to give us a thumbs up, and please be sure to follow us on social media. We're on Instagram and Facebook under Ike's Outdoors. Appreciate you guys watching.